lot of people in the park, but when I'm done, it's going to be completely empty, since I usually take like 2 hours. Okay, so we're almost at the starting point. There's one thing that actually I was reading up about, and that's what I thought I'd share with you, which was the whole idea that when I walk through LA, or many parts of here in California, there are sidewalks and stuff, but you never realize how much it really was. There really was a conspiracy to practically make walking illegal. It's very dangerous out here to walk. I've been walking for years, for more than a decade, maybe 20 years. And what I mean is just going on walks for the sake of a walk, not, like most people. On average, in any given week, I do about 30 miles walking, which is well beyond the average. But I've always tried to be more careful because, trust me, in all those years, I've seen plenty of time. There have been plenty of close calls. Every time one of those close calls, of course, opens my eyes to what else I can do. I thought I'd share with you some of the things that I found, because when I did, it kind of really upset me. See, I'm not a conspiracy believer. I don't accept conspiracies, but I understand that people can get together and try to do messed up things. So when that happens, I do get upset. So, okay, let's get started. Try not to look at my watch. So that I know some of you say that looking at my watch is probably what makes me go fast. Of course, to that I will say no. There's a time when my watch died for about a month, and I didn't have the money to buy a watch, so I just ran without one. But I ended up messed up anyway, because I guess I already have. I mean, the fact that I struggle so much with keeping my pace down means that I have this high threshold that for some reason I think is tolerable. Now that threshold is not always there, as I tell you, especially you regular folks. I do not like pain. Normally, I avoid it. I'm lazy. I like comfort. It's not. Remember how I tell you about how we're different people? So once I'm out running and I've done a mile, which I haven't yet, once I've done a mile, my pain tolerance changes. I change into that other person. And as that other person, I'm perfectly okay with running with no pain. And so if I use self-perceived effort, well, self-perceived effort is based on your pain tolerance. It's one of the metrics that tells you that. So if you can imagine, if my effort, my self-perceived, feels like it's not that bad, I'll push more. then I also get the anxiety.
Lap 1, 9:48. Heart rate 135.
Too fast, I know. As a matter of fact, there, see what happened? I went too fast. As I said, I should be doing it around 10:30. Closer to 10:30 than 10. I hate to admit, my camera here has a little clock on it. As I was running, right now it's saying 12 minutes, which is this section that I'm recording. The thing is, when I was running back there, I read it saying 9 minutes, and I guess my mind confused that. Confused camera time with my actual mile time. So it pushed me to run. And that's the thing is, I have an anxiety about going too slow. I feel absolutely mortified of the possibility. Everything that I can be afraid of jumps out at me, including the possibility that I'll finish the race at midnight. You're sitting in a comfy chair there. Like, that's nonsense. How can you think that? Excuse me. But that's what I tell you. That runs are not moments when your rationality is going to be very good. Your rationality rules. And so, any fears that I normally would dismiss may sometimes take over. So I need to account for those beforehand. But the reason I say it is because as I'm staying slow, I feel many, not just one, many anxious thoughts, including the feeling that instead of running my allotted time, I'll slow down to like 15 minutes a mile. That, of course, would be terrible for me. I know some folks really do run. As a matter of fact, there's a guy that I follow on Strava who runs for 4 hours at 15-minute miles. As a matter of fact, he kind of like is famous for it. Because if you calculate it, he should run a little more than 4 hours. Because he does 20 miles a day. He's been doing 20 miles a day for I think like more than a decade. He's an older guy. Which also proves the fact that, doing this right, had no reason to be injured. I would agree. Many people here get injured from sports, including me, will not be honest about their own complicity in their injury. Now, when I say that, you will have that one person who absolutely did nothing wrong and got injured. But I'm not talking about you. You are in the minority and you know that. I'm talking about the majority of people who get injured from sports. I've seen them so many years. I've been one of them. One of the things that we do is, of course, improve form, but we also push ourselves a bit too much. epicondylitis, or I think it's called golfer's elbow. Now, luckily, that is a problem only when I do specific exercises in the gym. So it's not even a problem that limits my quality of life. It's a minor problem. Same thing happens in Riverside. Anyway, my epicondylitis, and especially on my left epicondyle, my right elbow gets some too, but my left is the worst one. As a matter of fact, the beginning of this year it got so bad that I now finally decided to listen, and I'm no longer doing sets of 20 plus pull-ups. Now, some people can. I've been doing them for more than a decade. Sets of 20 pull-ups. We go to the gym, we do 20 pull up and pull down pull-ups. It was something I was proud about. Proud because I know most people cannot do them. Most men cannot. I could not. And so that I can do them now was a source of pride. But the problem was that when I was doing them in the gym, when I gripped the bar, because I was always going for the numbers rather than the benefit, my form suffered. And many times, without noticing that, my grip would loosen. And if your grip loosens, while you're doing that, you hyperextend your ligaments at your elbow. So after years of doing it, eventually I started suffering from problems. But at least I learned and figured out why. See the sunset? I figured out that it was in proper form. So for a while, I decided to make my form perfect. The thing is, the damage was already done. Once you're injured, sometimes doing any form of the exercise will only make things worse. Now, even today, every time I go to the gym, remember I go 3 times a week, I still do pull-ups. So it might still be a bad idea, I have to be honest, but no longer doing 20. I've now cut them down to 5, and over the last month, I've gone up by 1, so now I'm doing 6. But doing 6 pull-ups, when you used to do 20, it's just as humiliating as doing this run slow. It absolutely destroys my ego to do pull-ups. Yes, some of it is social. We all have a little bit of a social aspect to it. In other words, yes, I am worried that people will see me and laugh. Especially on those days when it's actually pretty rare. I should be honest, it's very rare. But once in a while, there will come a young man who will get in the bar.
Lap 2, 10:13. Heart rate 125.
That was better. Who will get on the bar and do 10, 15 pulls. I almost never see them do 20 in a shot. I think maybe once or twice a year. So, but the fact that doing 10 or 12 is more than the 6 that I do, yes, I do feel like I'm being exposed and humiliated. But I must give myself that time to fully recover, and it may be a year or 2. Now, thankfully, as I said, this is really only a problem once I'm in the gym with specific exercises. The rest of the time, this injury is really nothing. It does not affect my work. Even when I do physical work, it doesn't affect it. I guess because unless you were hanging from things as a part of your job, it shouldn't. So, here we are, a little more than 2 miles. And me talking about how I get injured, even though I'm not that badly injured. And what I'm doing now to try to recover. And the fact that many people who get injured in sports probably will follow a similar formula where I did improper form, got injured, didn't do enough. Now, in defense of sports injuries, though, many of us who suffer from sports injuries are still better off than the average American. There are exceptions, but many of us, despite our injuries, still are far more mobile and can do far more things, even while injured. And we do them because we can. So, if injury scares you, you know what? Maybe I should do a study of how many injuries sedentary people have versus how many injuries the active people have. Now, let's just look at the simplest one, the most common, back pain. I probably shouldn't be counted in that because I almost never get it. Anyway, I almost never get back problems. Sometimes after some of the heavy days, actually about 3 weeks ago, after leg day, I did get injured a little, but that actually proves how my point. For me, that back injury was more like a muscle pull. Pulled the muscle, I had a sore back for like 3 or 4 days, but I still moved around. I was definitely not limited in mobility. And then I got over it, and right now, I'm pretty much back to normal. But my whole point is, other athletes who have back problems, and some I'm sure have pretty bad ones. But I bet you that if we compare that population to the population of people who do no exercise, I bet you'd see even more back injuries there. Got to watch out a little here. Unlike back where I started, there are lots of little fruit flies. And, well, the camera covers me a little right now, though. I've literally eaten like a half dozen. That's why I'm spitting. I mean, at least they're not like regular flies. They're not necessarily germy. I'd still rather not eat fruit flies, you know. But what happens is around this part, when the sun comes down, the fruit flies form these large clouds. There's been times when I get back before I shower, my entire body is like covered with flies, with dead flies that got stuck to my sweat. Anyway, yeah, yes, we have sidewalks and everything, but even the sidewalks often have little driveways where people will just drive through. I've seen a couple of people get run over by cars coming out of driveways. Again, it's one of those things where people don't prepare. But then there's also just the design of our cities. LA is not as bad as Riverside, but it's still bad because to get to anything substantial like a market, you have in Riverside, the nearest market is 2.5 miles away. It's like 2.25 miles just to get to the parking lot, and then another quarter mile to get to the market. I walk a lot, and even I don't see a point to walking and running all the way to the market. Besides the fact that if you see it, it's over by Sierra Hill. But even if I didn't care about that, it just takes too much time. And I say this because it actually seems a little different from when I was in Mexico City. And, you know, Mexico's got its own problems. But at least there, even in the small towns, stores, the big stores were often 10 minutes away or less. Even the big stores. Of course, Mexico has a separate kind of a reverse problem. In Mexico, on every block, there are mom and pop stores. I don't know if that causes a problem, but the way it becomes one, because pretty much every mom and pop store, what it really carries is that 90% of their inventory is sodas and chips, and cookies, junk food. Very little of their inventory is useful, healthy food. And they'll tell you, you know, there's no point in carrying fruits when they go bad. Okay, fair point, but still, in Mexico, like I said, if you actually put in effort, you'll always be about 10 minutes away from a market with good, healthy food. rare. Even in LA, I'm close to downtown. Even I, it's the nearest Houston market, 15 minutes away, almost a mile away. Of course, what I live in is considered a food desert, so any parts about my head like that. So you guys, there's many parts where you just, like I said, you cannot reach a market within 10 minutes of a full service, as I said, large market, fruits, meat, and the other stuff. There's so many ways that our system has made sure that that's what it is. Remember having read that in the 1920s, car manufacturers actually lobbied in New York. I'll put some stuff here on the details of it. They lobbied in New York to make jaywalking illegal. Most Americans may not even be aware of the fact that crossing the street is not an illegal activity in most of the rest of the world. Not even in Mexico. Now the car companies, of course, and people who lobby for their own positions, they come up with their reasons, but when you look behind them, you realize they're bullshit. The reason was, of course, that pedestrians get in the street, and the term J means like a rube, like a dummy. So if they were saying that there's these dummies that get into the middle of the street, not looking here, and then cars end up swerving to avoid them, end up in accidents. Some people end up dead because these J's are walking into the street. Almost sounds reasonable. As a matter of fact, I used to believe it. And because there is some truth to it. The problem is that most people who actually jaywalk on the streets, like 98%, I'll find a statistic for you and put it up there, but like 98% or something like that, the vast majority of jaywalkers do not are not the causes of pedestrian vehicle accidents on the street. Because most people who are going to cross the street on purpose, out of a sense of self-protection, are going to look and avoid cars. They're not just walking around like Jays.
Lap 6, 1021. Heart rate 121.
Good. Let's remind at 6:15. So, jaywalkers are people who normally would not actually even know the law existed. That's because there's usually either one, they're drunks, two, they're children, or three, they're people with disabilities. In other words, these are all people who, through a lack of capacity, ended up on the street, unaware of the traffic. Not like your average person who crosses the street. Oh, sure, I'm sure you can find examples. We're talking about, on the whole, statistically, nope, doesn't happen. This is why most other countries don't bother with it. I mean, Mexico is pretty scary sometimes when you go to the streets, and yet the pedestrian fatality rate is simply not what you'd think. Now, I don't know if it's less than the US. That I don't know. 6:12. Okay, we'll turn around at the bridge. But nevertheless, having been there so many times, I find no problem there. People cross. They take their responsibility because they know if they don't, they get run over. And so such pedestrian encounters are exceedingly rare. If you actually look and think in terms of systems, like I've told you before, it gets even worse. I mean, the way our cities are sprawled compared to, like I said, if you go to other places, even Europe, Mexico, and you notice it's nothing like here. And this was by design decades and decades ago, so that the world here would revolve around cars. Every one of the things we think about, even our solutions, when we think about solving global warming and solving traffic problems, we still think in terms of cars. We can't think of fewer cars. Now, when I say this, again, because you always have some idiot who can't think about nuance, I'm not saying get rid of all cars. Of course not. Cars are valuable, useful. What I'm saying is, let's not go off the freaking deep end and build our entire lives around cars. Trust me, from somebody who used to build his life around cars. They're great, but they're just tools. We shouldn't have to need them so much. I guess if you're a trucker, yeah, but the rest of us shouldn't. Our cities should not be so freaking big. We don't need to build more traffic lanes in the freeways. As a matter of fact, it may not be such a bad idea to start reducing some of them. Go into the streets, remove lanes, and give them to the cyclists. I know some of you, when you hear that, it's like, oh no, hell no, fuck the cyclists. Cyclists are jerks. Yes, I've met plenty of cyclists that are jerks. The difference is that cyclists do not cause us anywhere near as much death as cars. Not by any statistical measure. I mean, car companies made jaywalking illegal. Many of the streets out there in suburbia have no sidewalks. People get killed far more often in the US than in almost any other industrialized nation. We have stroads where people drive like crazy. I mean, there are just too many examples to list all of them. You know? I mean, it's almost like if the Roger Rabbit, the actual storyline, the plot, was not just a fantasy, but it was real. You know, you remember how that guy said that he was going to destroy all the buses? That actually did happen. LA used to have lots of trams. Whoa. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't horrific. I decided to reward myself with 2 more miles because I was able to keep my slow run. At least it looks like, hopefully, above 10 minutes or within that range. So, and this says 204.11. 12.4 miles. Yeah, 10-minute pace, exactly. Oh, so I finished, like I said, I finished 12 miles. And here I am, 1.25 miles, a mile and a quarter into my cool down walk. So I was only expecting to do 10 miles, but as I said, as a reward, because I think I earned it. Which is funny because At any other time, I would also not consider it a reward. And trust me, I do not think running is rewarding. But in a twisted sense, while I was, it felt like that. So only at that time. Trust me, as I'm sure once I'm editing this video, I'm gonna be like, am I out of my mind? Running is not a reward; it's a punishment. Anyway, this is the Montebello Barnyard Zoo. You got like little llamas and kind of tame animals. It's not like they got tigers or anything like that. Anyway, so you can tell the people have already left the park. Really just the lights that they keep on after the games are over. So, but yes, I succeeded. You should celebrate, or I should celebrate the fact that, see, I don't give up. Every once in a while, I will actually do it. My run was kind of slow. I was just barely over 10 minutes a mile, which still, for me, that's a success. Did it feel like it? I felt like a failure. I felt like I was like my own little niece could probably outrun me. But as a matter of fact, that's the victory. The victory is conquering the shame, the pain, the anxiety. I kept feeling like I was going to stay there till midnight. I mean, look at this. It's already dark and everything. And I felt like, I might get attacked in the dark there. I mean, I got all kinds of anxious thoughts. But thankfully, well, not thankfully, because this is actually a pretty safe place. This is a nice place. So, it looks like it's almost 1.5 miles, and I will be now leaving the car, or leaving the park, getting into my car, because it is time. So, okay. So until next time, go check out that information I told you about how many ways the systems conspired against us walking. I say that on this little walking path. Yeah, but it's still true. Okay, take care.